Thanks for joining us again. It's Octoberfest, Jared. Thrill Me Podcast Octoberfest. 5 horror films, over 5 weeks, with 5 beers attached. Taking into account the old Munich Beer Fest in October. So we're trying to roll a few things together, a few things we feel our listeners are all keen on.
Yeah. Personally, I feel like we've got a similar level of credibility as Scotchtoberfest, I think.
Yeah. It's very, very similar to Scotchtoberfest. Tonight's film, Return of the Living Dead, from 1985. Now, Jared, before we go into anything else, what's the beer that mixes well with Return of the Living Dead?
Well, I felt that, being in a part of the world that's blessed to have a couple of excellent breweries close by, that we would, kick it off with a little piece from Capital Brewing Co, a nice little piece of business from Capital Brewing Co. It's the Rockhopper IPA, Adam. I felt there was only one selection here, and I really felt like, well, firstly, just, describing the beer, as on the can, it says, big and juicy, this West Coast IPA is loaded with tropical hop flavours and balanced with a refreshing dry finish. Well, I can tell you, she was a fucking dry finish the next morning last time I got into these ones. Because at 1.8 standard drinks a can, it's easy to lose track, and I felt this was a natural mix, because after the first session of Rockhoppers, I can tell you, I woke up the next morning, but I was certain that I was dead. So Return of the Living Dead was I felt it was a natural fit for this one. Yeah, look, if the can says a dry finish, Jared, but I believe yours was a bit of a fucking wet finish. you fucking chubbed it all over your shoes. Yeah. It may have been a little bit of that. But, I've sampled Rockhoppers on a couple of occasions, and I think one of those nights I decided to come home and chuck on a little bit of NBA 2K on the PlayStation, and immediately I was seeing double. I was playing 2 games of 2K in front of me. So yeah, that was a strange finish to the night. But yeah, the Rockhoppers have had an impact on me a couple of times. Well, look, if you're going to grab Return of the Living Dead, grab yourself a Rockhopper. Let's crack it now, Jared. And cheers to week 1 of Octoberfest. Return of the Living Dead. Let's do plus the Capital Brewing Co. Rockhopper. Fruity, bit of a dry finish. How's that one going? It seems to have it's definitely got it's loaded with tropical hops. I can see that. But yes, of course, nice fruity beer. I'm a 2-pot screamer, so fuck. So in Rockhopper terms, half a can and you'll be fucked. Yeah. We may hit some technical difficulties later. Yeah. Technical difficult at about halfway through the podcast, I think. Exactly. All right, let's quickly jump into it. We had a lot on the plate of what we'd watched when we did the Tombstone episode, but have you got anything else? Yeah, I do. Recent viewing. I've watched a little bit. I have watched a little bit in recent weeks. The first one that I'll make mention of is I worked my way through the season of Midnight Mass on Netflix. Oh, yeah? Mike Flanagan, obviously a bit of a fan of Mike Flanagan. He's done some pretty good work. I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed it a lot. I think it's not super scary. It kind of fails a little bit in that regard. There are some excellent parts that do generate a little bit of scare, and especially early on, but as it kind of moves along, that sort of drops off a little bit. But the premise is really good. I wasn't expecting what they were going for, and it is something that's been touched on before in other things that I've seen, but I really enjoyed it. And there were some really excellent scenes of dialogue-heavy stuff based around faith and death and what's beyond it and all this sort of stuff. But yeah, I really enjoyed it, and it was a nice sort of 7 episodes. I reckon it probably could have been 6, but given Netflix's issues normally with bloated, that one extra episode didn't really feel like it dragged it down too much for me. It does meander a couple of times, but I liked it a lot. So if you enjoyed Mike Flanagan stuff, you'll probably like this one. I think the Hill House stuff is probably his best one that he's done with Netflix, but this one was more, people have noted kind of Stephen King connections, and I can see them too, where the story ends up sort of moving to. But if you like Mike Flanagan, I don't think you'll be too disappointed with it. So that was one that I got onto. In terms of film viewing, I made my way through a couple actually. I noticed that Free Guy popped up for free, funnily enough, on Disney, Adam. So I watched Free Guy. I didn't mind it. It was okay. I was expecting that it wasn't going to be all that good. Probably better than I expected, but classic Ryan Reynolds stuff. He's quipping the whole way through. You get a few laughs out of it. I watched the latest animated Mortal Kombat flick called Battle of the Realms. Not too bad. They certainly push the violence, which you kind of expect from those things. Got onto the first of Welcome to Blumhouse's efforts for this year, or one of the first two, I should say, called Bingo Hell.
All right. How was that?
It was okay. I felt it's sort of, in the end, it felt a little bit half-baked. It felt you could see what they were going for. They get Richard Brake involved, who's always a pretty creepy sort of presence to have in some of these roles. But it just sort of felt like it didn't quite reach what it was going for. But I would definitely check it out. I'm going to be pushing through those. I think the other one on there is called Black as Night, I think, which is a vampire one set in New Orleans, I believe. So I'll probably check that out in the next couple of nights. So Bingo Hell certainly didn't put me off the whole thing. I really love the fact that they're doing this and putting out the original stuff at this time of year. The last couple, Adam. I decided to subscribe to Joe Bob Briggs's Patreon because at $7 a month, I was looking into it and I was looking at what you get. And given that, we've kind of recently been able to get in amongst what the bloke's offering with Shudder, I've been a really big fan of what's been put out. So I noticed on Patreon they actually give you access to a lot of his old Monster Vision stuff. Right. So I jumped on board. I got on board at the $7 a month. Actually allowed me to watch his thoughts on tonight's little movie that we're checking out. But another one that he put, he had a Return of the Living Dead on there, so I checked that one out. But he actually, the first video I came across mentioned one called Arcade, which was freely available to me on Tubi. So I thought, why not? Now, Joe Bob's thoughts on Arcade, unfortunately, only went for about 4 minutes, so I fucking shortchanged myself on that one, unintentionally.
Oh, no.
But very quickly, I realised it's a full moon feature, and it was directed by a bloke called Albert Pyun, who has tossed out a few interesting things, including Cyborg with JCVD. That's one of his.
He'd have 100 credits, wouldn't he?
Yeah, he's got a few. He's got a fair few up there. To be honest, it wasn't that bad. Look, it went sort of hand in hand with something like Lawnmower Man.
Oh.
Yeah.
Sorry, can you... I thought we said that little subgenre had died. Yeah, very fucking quick death.
It was a techno horror, Adam. So given, we know you love those ones. So perhaps you should check it out. Look, it's pretty ordinary. But I got to say, considering the budgets that Full Moon's usually going for, their special effects are not anything worse than what Lawnmower Man put out there. I mean, Lawnmower Man seemed to have a lot more money, but decided to go, see how much shit they could throw at the wall and see what would stick. Whereas this one kept it fairly restrained for parts of the movie. And so the effects, although very dated, don't look as bad for the most part. It probably, the last 15 minutes or so, they push it a little bit, and it does start to show pretty badly. And it's the storyline's a little bit bonkers, but it's all right. What I'm finding with these full moon features is they kind of capture stuff that you really do love about cinema. There's this kind of the storylines and shit. They go for that kind of wonder and the excitement that you sort of found going down to the video store when you're a kid. Looking for these sort of films. And they always...
Schlocky type of films.
Schlocky sort of things that are a little bit out there. They always seem to capture a little bit of that, even though they are super cheap and sometimes the acting and the writing, the directing or whatever are a little bit subpar. But you can see why they caught on. You can see why Charles Band was able to continue making movies with minuscule budgets and punching them out, and actually obviously must have turned profits out of them because he wouldn't have been able to keep making them. But you can kind of see why. And I would say that this one is not anything worse than something like Lawnmower Man. Given the advantages that Lawnmower Man had, that's not a compliment to that film by any stretch.
No.
So Arcade is not great, but it was enjoyable enough, and that was the second last thing I watched. Well, I watched the last one a little bit earlier, but I had to talk about it as the very last one, Adam, because it is the big ticket item. I watched Welcome to Sudden Death.
Oh.
Yeah.
Should I go? Oh.
I think you should, yes. Look, I've got a soft spot for Michael Jai White. The man deserves better. The man deserves better than this. I don't know what they were going for. I feel like the scale of the thing possibly outdid what they could afford. I mean, the ego was writing checks that the body couldn't cash on this one.
Right.
Jai White is fine. There's a couple of other performers in there that are bringing what you expect with the fight scenes. A couple of fight scenes that are pretty solid. But unfortunately, I mean, it just... for the first hour, it's just going along. There's not much happening, really. Like, obviously, if you've seen Sudden Death, you know what happens almost beat for beat. But this one, the pacing of it is just really random. They saddle Jai White with this guy who's I believe he's actually a stand-up comedian, but whatever's written for him is just shocking. And he is, I mean, he's dying.
Shocking.
He's dying in this one. And as I said to you, Adam, they can't even get the basketball right. It looks like they had about 5 minutes to shoot the basketball, so they've cobbled together everything from that. And it's shocking. I mean, I sent you a little clip of the editing during the basketball stuff, and it's fucking embarrassing. Like, the sequence that I sent you, it's like, even if you don't know basketball, you can see that this is off. Like, the sequence that I sent you involves, just to describe it for anyone listening, it involves a guy coming off a screen, and he comes down to the middle of the floor, plants 2 feet to obviously sort of launch for a dunk. While that goes on, they cut to the same bloke, obviously coming from somewhere else. He's dribbling almost to the baseline, and he leaps off 1 foot for a layup. And you just kind of look at it and go, what? They expect you to buy that this is the same sequence. And it also it's shockingly bad when you're supposed to be using... I mean, they barely use the clock from the game for the entire movie until we get down to the fourth quarter. I'm going to talk a little bit of spoilers because I'm assuming most people that listen to us have watched Sudden Death, so you're not going to be surprised by anything that goes on. So a little bit of spoiler territory. If you don't want to hear it, just tune out for 30 seconds or so. The final possessions, speaking of shockingly bad basketball, and this isn't even stuff you need to know a lot about, but there is a sequence where the score is 103 to 101. Okay, so we know that the game's going to be tied because we know the story, even though it's called overtime and not sudden death.
We're going to overtime.
We're going to overtime / sudden death. But they show this little sequence where a bloke obviously scores, quite obviously scores, but the shot doesn't show the basket. So this bloke scores, and you can see the guy from the other team grab the ball and go to step out of bounds to inbound it. Once again, a very bad cut showing him just inbounding the ball. So I'm like, okay, so they've edited to try and show us he doesn't score, but anyone with fucking eyes could see that he did. But we'll buy that, so it's still 103, 101. They go down to the other end of the floor, and old mate clearly hits a three-pointer. I mean, they shoot it so that he's fucking standing behind the three-point arc. He hits the three-pointer, the score goes to 103-103, and this guy goes to the fucking free throw line. And I'm sitting here going, what the fuck's happening? Like, I don't know what is happening here. So it was just, it was embarrassing in that regard. And as I said, Michael Jai White deserves better. I mean, the bloke has toiled for years just on the fringe, has gotten a couple of opportunities, but has never really got the credit that I feel like he could have. So that was disappointing. I don't know why I thought it was going to be better, but it was disappointing.
I believe, look, you're not in a good position when the Van Damme picture is more coherent and Van Damme's a better presence. You know that the sequel's probably not that good. And quite frankly, surely, Jared, you've got enough money to cobble together to go down and shoot a number of cameras at a fucking high school game, right?
Correct.
And just get a rent-a-crowd in.
Yeah.
And spend a couple of days just taking footage.
Yeah, they clearly
and
got
let these guys play.
They clearly got in a decent arena. But yeah, like you said, figure out a way, if you can't get that done in that time frame, so much so that every time, like I said, it felt like there was 5 minutes because there was also a sequence that showed up twice. And it was very obvious because a bloke does this little pass between his legs. And so I saw that twice and I'm like, that's the same thing we saw 10 minutes ago. So if you can't get enough of that, like you said, figure out a way to just get close-up shit on the floor and shoot it in a high school gym. Like, there's got to be ways around that. Shoot it with a fucking green screen with a bad CGI crowd if you have to. I don't care. Just because the way that you did it didn't work. But yeah,
disappointing because I believe I was all over that as well.
Yeah. It was.
I don't know
bad
why either, but
it was bad all round. The writing was just Once again, I'm still waiting for Jai White to be given the credit he deserves.
Well, yeah, he worked with Christopher Nolan, for fuck's sake.
I know, but he got 5 minutes, not even in that one.
Yeah, I know, but 5 minutes with Christopher Nolan, he deserves better.
Yeah.
For making this kind of schlock.
True.
All right, so that's everything for you?
Yeah, that's it for me. That's it.
Okay, mine was short and sweet. We kept on with our sort of lockdown classics. I wouldn't really call these classics. I'd call them sort of entertaining features. We did American Pie. I think that's kind of borderline classic because I really do like that. And I think it's a really good sort of coming-of-age comedy.
Yeah, still very funny, even though there's a few elements that haven't aged so well.
There's a few elements. Yeah, exactly. But other than that, it is quite amusing. We watched Rocky Balboa, which I've actually got a real soft spot for Rocky Balboa. I think they did a fantastic job with it.
Yeah, love it.
Under the circumstances of where Rocky was, it could have been an absolute shit show. But Stallone does good things there.
He does.
And the last one I did watch was a new Netflix one called The Guilty with Jake Gyllenhaal.
Yes.
I believe it's a remake of is it a Swedish or something like that film? And the premise is one of those kind of phone booth style, on the phone with someone trying to stop what is an abduction. It just doesn't work. As far as I was concerned, it wasn't. After about half an hour, it's not compelling at all. Other than Jake Gyllenhaal, who gives a good performance, the film's just kind of sucks.
Yeah,
and it kind of ends in such a shitty way. They're trying to. I kind of get where they were trying to go, but they just go in a really poor direction with it, and it's not very well done. Certainly, don't waste your time in my book.
Right.
Yet it's got some really good pedigree. It's directed by Antoine Fuqua, who did The Equalizer. It's written by the bloke who wrote True Detective. So the pedigree's there, but it's just not very good. So disappointment in that one.
Right.
But that's it for me.
Short and sharp, mate.
Short and sharp. All right, well, let's take a break. Charge your rock hoppers. And here's the trailer for 1985's Return of the Living Dead.
They were resting in peace until they were rudely interrupted.
What do you want to do, Scud? Sit on the gravestone?
I just want to party.
And there's
place is a mess. Now look who's awake. They're on the way. Break. They're back from the grave and ready to party.
I think things are getting out of hand.
The Return of the Living Dead. Rated R.
Return of the Living Dead from 1985. Directed by Dan O'Bannon, who directed The Resurrected. It's produced by Tom Fox, who produced Return of the Living Dead Part 2. The story was by Rudy Ricci, John A. Russo, who co-wrote Night of the Living Dead, Russell Steiner.
I thought you said Rick Rude there for a minute.
No, not Rick Rude, no. He was too busy putting Perth people in the fucking figure four leg lock and getting all oiled up and shit. And Russell Steiner, I believe, may have been one of the actors in Night of the Living Dead.
Yes, he is. They're coming to get you, Barbara. That's him.
Oh, okay. And the screenplay was by O'Bannon. It stars Clu Gulager as Bert, James Karen as Frank, Don Calfa as Ernie, Thom Matthews as Freddie, and Beverly Randolph as Tina. The budget was $4 million. The box office was $14 million worldwide. And this bit of trivia is interesting, and it came off Internet Movie Database, so I can't be 100% sure if it's correct. But the part of Bert was initially offered to Leslie Nielsen, who wanted too much money.
Deservedly so.
It would have been a totally different film.
Oh, can you imagine? I mean, Frank Drebin in a zombie outbreak would be fucking outstanding.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Jared, what's your take on Return of the Living Dead?
This is another one that I'd given a bit of distance. I hadn't seen it for quite a few years, so I was really keen to have another look at it. Also keen to have a couple of rock hoppers at them, so, just hand in hand. I always remember having a bit of a fondness for it, and yeah, nothing's really changed. I really dig it. It's good fun. I think it manages to get some of those really effective sort of panic moments of people trapped inside, not being able to get out, or trying to have their escape plans coming together, but without kind of the seriousness of the Romero flicks. It has a little bit more fun, a little bit more comedy on the surface. I think the effects, for the most part, are really, really good. I love the Tar Man effects. I just love that. And going back to it, I probably have a little bit more of a downer on how the zombies act. I'm open to seeing different interpretations of all this stuff. But over the years, I think I've settled more on Romero's version of zombies as being the kind of height of it. And I think that in part is informed by, reading some of the stuff that people have put together. Something like Simon Pegg talking about why Romero's zombies are better. I kind of agree with that. And I'll go into a little bit about that later. So looking back on it, I don't particularly love the way that the zombies act, but it's a hell of a lot of fun, and I stick at a 3.5 for this one. I was very close to a 4. I settled on a 3.5, but I really do love this one.
Yes. It lacks some character development, and I'll get to that in the dislikes. It's probably one of my only dislikes, but it's extremely effective. It's very entertaining, and it has a number of memorable scenes and a couple of interesting ideas, which I thought they didn't really bother to dig into, but they just kind of hit them briefly, and they are really nicely handled. So overall, again, 3.5. I was right on the wave of a 4. Some might say I'd had one too many rock hoppers at the time. And maybe that was fucking impeding my judgment when I mentioned that. But overall, I think it's a fantastic film.
Speaking of...
And it's actually aged pretty well.
It has. But, speaking of, Adam, it's time for me to just sort of impede things a little bit more, crack another one. So
crack a second rock hopper.
Yeah, I think I agree. I agree with what you said there. There are some things that they do touch on briefly that could have been explored a little more and made it really more interesting in terms of some of the stuff that I mentioned that I don't particularly like about zombies in this one. But yeah, I agree. There's some stuff that they did where it was really sort of like, hey, this could have been something there.
Yeah. Straight into the likes. James Karen and Clu Gulager are both excellent.
Yeah, really good.
There's
really
something
good.
about having seasoned actors in those roles that kind of give a bit of meat and some humour to the piece. Yeah. And they're natural. They're very natural.
Yeah, the delivery is just like you said, it's so natural. There's Gulager is just he spends half the movie telling people what to do and trying to cover his own ass, but he's so fucking charming while he's doing it. And so amusing in a couple of parts. I'm slightly disappointed that he didn't start, yelling at Tom Matthews about cheap birdseed or something like that. But look, I'll take what I can. Also, good to see Tom Matthews anywhere really, because he didn't really have a long run, but he had a run in a niche that we really like in a couple of movies that we really like. So it's good to see him anywhere.
Yeah,
really.
Yeah, exactly. And look, he doesn't get a lot to do. And the great thing about those two older actors, and you can probably throw Don Calfer in there as well, there's not a lot of information about their characters. Again, character development is slim, but these guys take that and run with it and give it something more. They flesh it out themselves, basically, in the performances, which is great. And it really helps to have that.
Yeah, I guess that's kind of what you mentioned, the advantage of having seasoned performers who just give you a little bit of that you can infer for yourself in their interactions and stuff like that. Especially given that I read a brief interview with Tom Matthews that mentioned that Clu Gulager he kind of butted heads with Dan O'Bannon because he got pulled into the role late. So he sort of mentioned that Gulager had a lot of pressure. Hearing that, you don't see it at all. Really, no. I think their performance is really good. So you don't really see any of that pressure, and that comes back to what you said, just seasoned professional.
Correct. FX overall on a very small budget are very well done.
Yeah, really good.
The Tar Man especially, but some of the zombie work, the zombie effects, some of the gore. Comes together nicely.
Yeah, some of it's excellent. Like Tarman is a standout. There's one where, the skeleton comes up and then fucking opens its eyes and the eyeballs are there, which, doesn't make a lot of sense, but hey, it looks pretty good. The kind of half body on the table, all that stuff looks really good. There's a couple of moments that aren't so great, like the zombie that kind of ducks in and says, send more paramedics. He doesn't, you look at that and you say, okay, maybe that's where they skimped some of the more lively-looking zombies.
Yeah.
But yeah, for what they got and what they spent, looks great. And a couple of neat little tricks, like a particular like in terms of the special effects for me was the zombie with no legs that they seem to have got played by an amputee who fucking leaps back up and chases Ernie back into the morgue. Even though there's no limbs there, and they've made it look like that was somebody who had limbs and now, zombified, has them removed, but still comes at him. That looks fucking fantastic, and he's creepy as hell.
Yeah, it's fantastic, and so they really sort of stretch their special effects budget.
Yeah,
and get away with it pretty damn well, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
I do like the opening setup. It takes maybe 10 minutes, but we get introduced to the older characters and the younger group, the location, so the medical supply company and the graveyard, and the basic premise is effectively showcased within that 10-minute period. So it's a nice, solid start to get you going.
Yeah, it's similar to, it's no surprise that Russo had some of the initial story ideas because it is similar to Night of the Living Dead in that it's pretty contained, but it seems really broad. It does seem like a zombie outbreak that's affecting more than what you actually see, even though really in the movie we've got 3 locations basically, all right next to each other.
Yeah, I really like the split dog coming alive.
Yeah, that was excellent, actually.
And the way James Karen handles it, he's just like, fucking kill it!
yeah. Great. Also, like,
he grabs a crutch and starts going off.
Yeah, it's a really cool idea, but also you see the butterflies just in the background. There's the butterflies that are pressed to the board and their wings are flapping and shit. Like, that was a really cool idea to kind of introduce what was happening on a smaller scale.
Mm.
And I think
exactly
the setting of being like the kind of the supply company is really effective in that regard, because it makes it makes a ridiculous thing fairly believable, fairly grounded, really, considering how over the top and ridiculous it really is.
Yeah, exactly. I love the fact that when the character of Trash starts stripping in the cemetery, you just hear out of shot, you hear a black character go, "Let's get some light over here. Trash is taking her clothes off again."
yeah. That was gold. Absolute gold. Oh, man. Yeah, very funny. Very funny.
I've got some things to say about her character.
Yeah.
Later on. But I just couldn't stop laughing at that. That was just fucking hilarious.
Yeah, it's funny. That group it's one of those things where at the time you see a group of young actors together or whatever, but down the track, in terms of being a fan of horror movies and stuff, it's a really neat little group to see. Like, you got you got the big fella from Friday Part 5. What's his name? Mark Vincenti, I think his name was. You've got Demon.
You got Miguel Nunez.
You've got Linnea Quigley, who's obviously made a bit of a career out of being the Scream Queen sort of thing. So, yeah, it's really cool to see that little group. Could have done without Brian Peck. I'm not sure if you know much about him, but pretty scummy human being.
No.
So, yeah.
No, I don't know much about Brian Peck.
Yeah.
Which one was Brian Peck?
So he's the bloke with the little sort of blonde mohawk.
Oh.
It's more to do with kind of real life. Essentially, he's caught up in the whole Bryan Singer stuff. So, yeah, he's got some very unsavoury things that he's been convicted for, I believe. So, yeah, not great to see
Brian
someone
Peck.
like that in there. But other than that, the group is it's, as a horror fan, it's really nice to see some of those people together.
Yeah, exactly. I really love that scene where they try and kill that reanimated corpse in the medical supply company place, because it is fucking hilarious.
Yes, yeah.
I couldn't stop laughing at the way they're trying to fucking handle it. He's like, hold him down.
Yeah. Well, that's where, I mean, that whole, there's like a stretch there where it's hilarious because Clu Gulager's doling out orders and Frank's fucking wailing the whole time. And like you said, they put a pickaxe through its head and then they're sitting there going, "You said this would work." And he's like, "I saw it in the friggin' movie." And then next thing you know,
he saws its head off and it runs off.
Yeah, that was excellent. It kind of, I loved it too because it mixed up the expectations. I mean, at the time, so my understanding is that when Night of the Living Dead got big, that Russo and George Romero came to a legal agreement that Russo could retain the Living Dead title and Romero could continue making them, but that's why his were the Dead rather than the Living Dead. So it kind of mixes up your expectations. I mean, if you were going into this knowing that that's what was happening, that it's, in a way, it's a continuation of the Living Dead stuff, the Night of the Living Dead. When you see that going on, you expect, oh yeah, okay, so the pickaxe to the head, that's going to finish it off. So it mixes up your expectations, but it's like you said, there's a sense of humour to it. It's piss funny while you're watching it. So yeah, I really like that as well.
Yes, and I dug that, the way that they reanimated the graveyard, which is the smoke coming from the crematorium into the air, which is then rained down on the cemetery.
Yeah.
I just thought it was a really cool way of doing it.
Good little way to escalate.
We hadn't seen it before either.
No, escalating things, kicking it into gear, sort of takes this little, even though we said, that the movie is it's still pretty contained, it's the way that they use that to kind of spread it out is, I like that as well.
Yeah. Really good way of sort of opening it up a little bit, but not too far.
Yes.
First time we see Tar Man, and he gives us the old brains.
Yeah.
I love the way the actor in the suit moves too. It's almost like he's a marionette.
Well, yeah, I looked at it and I was like, it's like he's one of the kind of zombies that we'd come to recognise, mixed with like a Muppet or something, like you said, a marionette. The face looks like that very kind of Muppet-esque because of the big eyes and stuff like that, and the mouth being very pronounced when it moves up and down. But yeah, like you said, the movements, he's kind of dragging a leg, and I thought that, I just love it. I love the effect of that one. We don't see him greatly, but every time it's on the screen, I really loved it.
Well, it's interesting because I'd forgotten about this, but he's kind of got some smarts. He uses the winch to pull the door off.
Yes.
To get at her.
Yep.
And I thought that was really interesting. It wasn't sort of fully fleshed out, but it was just interesting to see a zombie operate with a brain, almost.
Yeah.
Which I thought was a really good way of doing it. It was simple but effective.
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, I've got some issues with that stuff, but I'm open to seeing stuff like that.
Maybe it could have been handled better.
Well, it's someone's interpretation of it, so I'm open to seeing different interpretations. It's like, the running zombies and when it's not necessarily a zombie, Zack Snyder obviously with Dawn of the Dead, running zombies. 28 days later with a zombie that's not necessarily a zombie, so that's why they explain the running and all that sort of stuff. So I'm happy to see different interpretations of it. There is some things about this stuff that I don't particularly like, but in those contained moments, like with Tarman doing that and with the one talking to them, there's stuff about that I do really dig, and I think could have gone a little bit further.
Yeah, agreed. I love the scene when we finally get the teens going outside and the graveyard everyone starts coming up out of the ground. They have that song, "Do You Want a Party?"
Yeah, that was awesome.
I think it just really sums up the whole thing, the entertainment value of the film, the trying to have a good time with it. And I think that whole sequence kind of sums that up.
Yeah, I think too, it's a real kind of throwback to the time period that we've got a fondness for as well, that kind of cock rock, sort of hair metal sort of sounding kind of song, and the look of the punks where it's just that ridiculous chains and shit hanging everywhere. I really dug that as well. I really liked it.
Yeah, it was just an interesting way to place it, but I think it sort of sets the film off on that, still staying with the entertaining sort of tone and not trying to go with anything too serious, like A Night of the Living Dead was. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
So I think it was a nice way to go. The two Ambos being killed.
Yes.
I love it when he turns the lights on and there's just fucking a wall of zombies in front of the ambulance.
Yeah, that was... Some of those sequences were where they kind of artificially pumped up the scale, where those guys get attacked by a fucking wave of zombies.
Yeah.
And that was, again, how they're sort of coordinated. Yeah, I like those scenes as well.
And I must admit, I did like the bit where we see the zombie chewing the Zambo's fucking brains out, and then he hears the radio go off.
Yeah.
And he gets in and goes, 10-4 receiving or whatever. Send another ambulance.
Yeah, send more paramedics. That was good.
Yeah, I just dug that shit. It was interesting. It was funny. It was, just again added to that cheeky vibe that the film had kind of built up.
Yes.
Now, this is the bit that it's probably gonna, as you said, you've got some problems with the way some of this works, but I like the skeletonized zombie that attacks, I believe it's our mate Brian Peck, chews his brains out, and then gets cut in half, and they use it to sort of interrogate it, and tie it down to interrogate it. And I thought that stuff was interesting, the whole thing where she's like, why do you do it? And she's like, to stop the pain of death and all this sort of stuff. I thought that was kind of an interesting, intriguing idea.
Yeah.
It could have potentially, in another film, may have been mined a little deeper. But this movie was, it was running at a fast clip, and it wasn't going to stop to explain all that.
Yeah, well, that's
which in the end is a good thing.
Correct. I think you hit it on the head. It's a really interesting thing that comes up short when you think about it too much. So maybe if they went into things, it might have sucked. But as it stands, it's a cool little moment that you look at and you say, yeah, it didn't really go anywhere though. But for that 30 seconds to a minute where they're talking to it, really good stuff.
Yeah, it doesn't go anywhere. And another film may have pressed that idea to potentially, Jared, to bad results. It could have gone the wrong way.
Yeah.
But they just sort of touch on it, and then they go, well, we haven't got time for that. We're at a breakneck pace because things are really ramping up by that stage. And the film sort of wisely continues to kind of rocket along towards the end.
Yeah.
It doesn't sort of stop to sort of mine that, which in one way is negative, but in another way is positive because it realises, well, we know what we are.
Yeah, that's right.
I really like the shot of trash coming through where the homeless guy is pushing his little cart along, and he looks over and you see all the smoke and mist in the air, and then she just comes walking out of it. Really
cool sort of imagery that they've set up there. Just nice.
Yeah, I like
nice little shots.
And I like the kind of way they sort of she became really pale, and she almost had like a vampiric type of look to her face.
Yeah. Definitely. I mean, Russell Mulcahy would have loved. Mulcahy would have loved that scene.
Russell Mulcahy would have eaten that up.
He would have loved it.
Oh, mate, he would have been saying, "Act with the smoke."
yeah. Become one with the smoke. I think you've been becoming one with the smoke before we jumped on set.
Yeah. Russell, have you been snorting cocaine again? I refuse to answer that question. The last 20 minutes is just balls to the wall. It's fucking all happening.
Yeah.
You've got two different groups split off. You've got Gulager fucking busting out of the place in a cop car.
Yep.
You've got... It is just happening. Like you've got Ernie and Trish, is it? Is it Trish? Tina, in the roof, and Tom Matthews going after them.
Yep.
It's all happening. You've got the armies realising that this shit's gotten loose and we've got to bomb it. It's just all happening, and it's all fucking really, really well played. The pacing of it is well done. The editing is good. You know, you never feel like, oh, shit. Every time they cut away to the army, I'm bored.
No, because it's at a cracking pace.
Yeah, and I think they do a fantastic job.
And I think, as you said, my feeling was that it just keeps getting better as it goes along. I felt like it's just the movie kept on getting more exciting, more tense, kind of more humorous as it went along. So, yeah, by the end of it, that last 20 minutes is just a cracking pace. Like you said, they didn't go too deep into the character development and whatnot. So the army stuff in particular, the army bloke looked fairly amusing to me in that sense, like how he shows up for 2 minutes at the start and then 2 minutes at the end. But it does work. Like, it does work for what they're going for, an exciting pace, and also really fits with the whole Living Dead thing, where it kind of takes elements of that ending but ramps it up to ridiculous levels, you know?
Yeah. Just a question too. Is that army bloke's, the lady that's there, is that his wife?
Well, it seems to be his wife, but I tell you what, she's copying it.
She looked about 100. Well, it's just like, looks like your fucking grandmother.
I mean, the way he's acting, you'd think, there's no wonder she looks 100. She's copying it left and right. I mean, you know, when he first walks in and she says, "How's your day?" or whatever, and he's like, "Oh, it's fucking," I can't remember the line, but he basically says something like, "Oh, fucking shit as always," or whatever. And she goes, "Oh, I cooked you your favourite for dinner, lamb chops," and he goes, "Had it for lunch," and fucking just walks off. Come on, mate. Just give her a crumb.
Good on you, mate.
She's trying
it. Hell. At least say, yeah, I'll have them again.
Yeah. Say, oh, you know, I'm feeling...
Come on, bro.
My appetite's a little light, but I appreciate the effort.
Yeah. Oh, Jesus. Fucking prick of a bloke.
Yeah. Look, I love the fact that you've cooked me my favourite dinner, but I had 8 rock hoppers for lunch, so I'm just going to go and fucking pass out in bed.
Yeah, I had them for lunch, but I threw them up just recently.
Yeah.
After I drank 8 rock hoppers.
Say something a classy bloke like myself would say. Yeah.
I got you your favourite beer, rock hopper.
Yeah. What was your name again? Ruth.
Jesus Christ. Top bloke, by the way.
Yeah.
Top bloke. I also really like that sequence where they run into the tar man again and fucking Clue Gulliger takes his fucking head off the baseball bat.
Yeah. See, this is the stuff that, Night of the Living Dead, having watched that again just recently and just, absolutely loving it, it doesn't take away from that. It's not like it's trying to. It's not like it's trying to take shots at that or anything. It seems like obviously the split between the two filmmaking groups didn't seem to be necessarily, very tidy. But it doesn't seem like it's trying to fucking shit all over that. It seems like it is trying to pay its nods but go in its own direction. And I think it does that really successfully. And that kind of humour is that kind of stuff is what you don't see in the older one. Obviously, standards had moved on a bit in that 15-year stretch or whatever it was, 20-year stretch since the original. But yeah, I love the fact that you get a bit of that in this one.
Exactly. And my last like was the ending with the army bombing the joint and then the rain coming down again and we kind of kick off all over again.
Yeah.
I just thought it was another sort of cool way of kind of bringing it back around.
Yeah.
I don't know how the sequel ties into this one. Does it not?
No, I can't remember, but I know Tom Matthews and James Cameron come back in different roles. And again, referencing that interview that I read with Tom Matthews, he said that was a financing thing. That to get financing for the sequel, there was a Japanese group that said, yeah, we'll give you the cash, but these two have to be in it. So they kind of just brought them back as different characters.
Right.
I do have the second one floating around there on DVD somewhere, so I think I'll be digging that out and watching it again because I recall enjoying that one too.
Yeah, I believe it's kind of almost like a quasi-remake of it. Yeah. Have you got any other likes?
Well, I mean, we kind of briefly mentioned them, but obviously the Friday the 13th connections. We've got a couple of people there, obviously, a couple of our favourites that we mentioned in the punk group there. Look, I love Miguel Nunez in this time period. He's fucking... Yes. I cannot look at him without hearing, ooh, baby, ooh, baby. I just love that. But he's also a very good actor. I think he's a very good actor.
Yeah, he's a handy actor.
And he's good in this, I love the fact that he's taken on as an equal almost by the older blokes, but he has these couple of moments where he's breaking down and then fucking Clue Gulliger slaps him. Just kind of...
Yeah. I love the fact that he actually kind of survives.
Yeah, well, that's right. He's one of the group that's going until, obviously, they just blow everyone up. But, I love the fact that he got to that point. I think he delivers a pretty good performance throughout that. I also love... We've mentioned it already. Clue Gulliger's excellent. But, again, the dynamics... My favourite line in the movie, and it probably says more about me as a person than anything else, but I love when Miguel Nunez kind of says, I think it's time you tell us what the fuck's going on. And Clue Gulliger looks at him and goes, I don't have to tell you anything, dick brain. It's just kind of This kind of continues on, but his delivery is so fucking good, and it brought back memories for me of him blowing up in Elm Street 2 about the cheap bird seed and birds fucking that being the cause of birds fucking combusting in the air and shit like that. I just loved it. I absolutely loved it. So that was great. That came out as my favourite line of the piece in amongst some pretty good ones.
Yeah, agreed. Anything else?
No, that was it. That was all my likes.
Okay, dislikes. Pretty thin for me, but the acting from the teens, it's not a real great bunch, apart from Nunez, who is pretty good, and Tom Matthews is okay, but I think the others are a little bit lacking. They're not exactly competent. Thankfully, it's sort of fixed by the fact that we spend a lot of time with the older guys.
Yeah.
So we don't have to worry too much about performance because those older guys are good at it.
I think it also hurts that some of them are just like wild bloody caricatures.
Yeah.
So it's kind of...
Well, that's the biggest problem with the film. There is zero character development for those guys. Nothing.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, it plays...
Absolutely nothing.
It plays to a strength in some ways, and like you said, some of the older guys get not only more chance to create a little bit of character, but, you know, have the experience and the talent to create a little bit of that on their own. But like you said, the bunch of teenagers, there seems to be... I mean, at the start, it seems like there's so many of them. What, there's 6 in that car that they roll up in?
Well, there's a dude dressed in a zoot suit.
He seems to me to be a bit of a nod to Russell Steiner's Johnny in the original. Am I off there? Or that's what he looked like to me?
Yeah, no, I think you're probably correct, but he gets absolutely fuck all to do.
Correct. Nothing.
Like nothing.
And we have to have a bit of that. We know we've got to kill some people off in some gruesome ways, and they have to do a little bit of that to kick things off before they go into the ones that sting a little more because you spend a bit more time with the characters. But like you said, it's hard to develop any of it in that group.
Yeah, and Trash, I grew tired of her shit quickly. When she's rambling on the whole time about death and all that sort of stuff, I was just kind of like, oh, fuck. Like, just from the sheer perspective of her as a character, talk about caricature, she did nothing but talk about death, nude up, and then get ripped to shit.
Yeah.
That was it.
Yep.
Like, it was a real flat line.
I don't have a lot of problems with one of those 3 points that you just raised.
No, I'm okay with her talking about death.
Yeah, of course. Especially after 6 or 7 rock hoppers.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, 6 or 7 rock hoppers. I think her performance is fucking excellent.
Yeah, that's right.
But yeah, look, the middle one I'm fairly happy with.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But the rest, like, there is just nothing for her to do.
No.
As far as acting and character development wise, she's just kind of there to nude up.
Yeah.
It's kind of a striking image they were going for when she's dead and she starts coming out of, as we said, out of the mist and, you know, out of the fog, naked with the leg warmers on.
Yeah.
And the purple hair and everything. It's a really striking image, but just to lead up to getting her there, it's just like, fuck hell.
Yeah, look.
The first time we see her and she opens her mouth, I was just like, oh, God.
Yeah, look, honestly, I've probably got the least issues with hers because, you know, obviously talking about the time period, she was there to serve a purpose.
Yes, I understand that.
And that's obviously kind of what they went with, the role, the lines leading up to that all. I mean, when you look at it, hers is probably the one out of that group that actually has a really clearly defined role in what's going on.
Yeah, agreed, but really, even in that case, it's very limited.
Well, so I guess the reason I have the least issue with her character is because it's purposely limited. And, you know, say what you will about the time period, that was the best role for a woman in this movie, basically. You know, I probably agree with what people might have to say about that one. But the other people in the group are, like you said, the fella in the suit, he's what why does he even have lines?
Yeah. He could have been excised entirely, and it wouldn't have really mattered.
Yeah,
I think he survives, doesn't he?
Well, him and his partner seem to be. Yeah, they're in the medical supply thing when Clu Gulager fucking crashes the car, and him and Miguel Nunez end up back in that section of it and call the army. So yeah, I mean I agree, and I think, like we said, this type of movie, you're going to have some of those issues because some people are going to be there just to be knocked over. But funnily enough, Demon is in this movie, and he was always my favourite reference in a film that I don't particularly like. I absolutely love coming back to Demon as a guy who's got a couple of minutes on screen before he gets killed, and he's got nothing else to do, but you just absolutely love seeing it.
Enjoy it,
yeah. And I think Linnea Quigley's role as Trash kind of feels something similar to that. She was there to do something specific that she did, and some of the other characters. I feel like maybe that crew is too big, and maybe you did just have to introduce a couple of people just to fucking wander past the cemetery and get knocked over, like the homeless guy or something like that. But yeah, I know, I can see exactly what you're saying, that it doesn't necessarily work in that massive group, especially, oh shit, what's his name? Suicide. Is it Suicide? The big fella from Friday Part 5. I mean, he might be the worst one.
He is fucking useless.
Because he gets set up as this particular thing, and then when the shit goes down, he gets rolled very quickly and doesn't really have any memorable kind of scene to go down in. Like it's just, so I totally see what you're saying there, and I agree for the most part.
So that was really my only two dislikes. Just that there's not a lot of character development, and there's not a lot of, the acting's not great from the younger crew. Yep. Did you have anything else?
I did. I've got a couple to discuss, and I think you'll probably have some valuable input on these ones. So the idea that the barrels, I mean, we cop a lot of shit in this movie. It is over the top, but the idea that the barrels have been stuffed in the basement for however many years they have, and the army's looking for them, I still, even with Clu Gulager's kind of remonstrating about, you don't call the fucking army or you don't call the cops or any of this sort of stuff, I still have no understanding of why they just stuffed them in the basement and didn't call anyone for however long.
Yeah.
Especially if they knew that there was fucking bodies and this sort of shit in there. Look, I see that you've got this little bit of, especially from James Cameron's sort of character's point of view, he's got this little bit of, you know, I've got something down here that you're going to want to check out to the other employees. But if you know there's fucking bodies in there, why have you stuffed them down there for... We're led to believe that this is tied into Night of the Living Dead, right? And that this happened in that time period, but names were changed and things were changed. So we're saying that they've been down there for what? I haven't looked at the exact time period, but 15 plus...
What, 20 years?
15 to 20 years? Is that what we're saying? And that nobody said, boss, do you reckon we should just fucking call the army and get this shit out of here?
Like, yeah, there's a corpse in that one there. Fuck, better ring the number that's on it.
Yeah. This whole
it's
shit...
pretty simple.
This whole shit could have been avoided if you called them fucking when the delivery turned up wrong.
Yeah, exactly.
So out of all the things I have to cop in this movie, that's the one that I find to be the hardest, is like, I'm not leaving that down there. I'm not stuffing them in the basement going, I don't want the army to come here. I'm calling the army immediately. I'm
definitely calling that in.
Yeah.
Immediately.
Yeah. Even though I did find it funny when he starts going, this is made by the bloody US of A, and he slaps the canister and the shit comes flying out. Like that was very funny. But yeah, out of all the things that we cop in this movie, that's the hardest one to take, I think.
Yeah.
The other one too. So I spoke about previously that I'm open to, I feel like I'm pretty flexible with different interpretations of characters. I think that's just, I feel like number one, it comes with the territory when we're fans of things like Halloween and Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street, where the modus operandi is find the cheapest person available who's willing to do it give them a couple of kind of constraints, but then let them fucking just go ahead and make it. You sort of have to take. I feel like you have to become a little bit flexible with takes on characters that you're familiar with and you love to sort of continue enjoyment of it. So I find I'm pretty flexible with that sort of stuff. I like to see different interpretations of characters and see how they play out. Also, being a comics fan, that comes with the territory. So yeah, I'm open to that, and I like doing that. But with zombies, I feel like I've come to the point where, yes, I'm happy to see it. Throw it at me. I love seeing things like 28 Days Later. Love seeing things like Zack Snyder's Dawn of the Dead, where they're running and that. But I come back to George Romero's because they seem, for me, in most situations, to represent this sort of inescapable fact that we're all going to die, and that if that's what they represent, then it's kind of death, that it's just sort of there. It's kind of looming, and it's going to take you down, but it's not necessarily calculated and planned. So when I look at the zombies in this movie, I kind of look at it and I'm like, oh, I don't love the talking all that much. I do have a bit of fun with kind of the brains and all that sort of stuff, but when they start radioing to send more paramedics and send more cops, I get a bit of a laugh in the moment. But at the end of the day, I'll look at it and I think, I don't love it. I don't love it all that much.
Yeah, and I would agree that the running and stuff has its place in the right film and has worked. But I do agree that the Romero stuff, it brings a different angle to it that I still feel is equally as effective, if not more effective. The running stuff worked in something like 28 Days Later really, really well because they didn't tell you it was zombies. They told you they were infected.
Yeah, it was a different explanation.
So whatever they were...
A different explanation, and it feels more like, especially now we're going through something like COVID, it feels more like a fucking spreading disease in that one.
Yeah. So that one works better in the way it's drawn, because it's not saying, well, it's zombies, so they didn't have to conform to specific rules.
Yeah. And, each movie...
Which is the way you get around it.
That's right. Each movie kind of redefines its own little rules and that sort of thing. And I felt, I guess, the issue with this one that drags it down just a touch for me is the fact that it's kind of conforming to the rules that were already set by Romero and Russo, who was involved in this one. But then he goes to make those changes, and it comes up in points that we mentioned before, like the half zombie sort of sitting on the table talking to them. So the issue with that for me is when they're talking about it and talking about how the brains make the pain go away and that sort of stuff, I was looking at that and I'm saying that's it's an intriguing little idea that is a different take on a similar thing that Romero's kind of have come to represent. But the issue for me there is coming from someone like Tom Matthews' character, when he turns, that makes total sense because he's still just there. He still looks human. He can still... Yes. You could buy him communicating in that. The one laying on the table, what I come back to... Has been
buried for years.
That's right. I come back to this saying, yeah, you've been buried for however long, you're skeletal... You're the one that's telling us that the brains make the pain go away. I feel like if that's the direction you're going, then the skeletal ones and that should be the ones that are further removed from being able to talk and do all that sort of shit.
A fresh corpse, maybe.
Correct.
Would have been a better idea.
Yeah, that's where I come back to. I come back to you're supposedly the one that's been fucking stuffed in a grave or whatever, whereas Tom Matthews was the one that was saying to us, it hurts. I can feel it fucking taking over. It hurts. So him being the one to say, yeah, fresh brains, that makes a bit of sense. But then this one, you look at it and you're like, okay, so you've been fresh out of the grave for fucking 15 minutes. You're the one that's fucking last to the body because there's a few other people here that are, full body, racing over, running over and attacking someone, you're fucking dragging yourself around.
Yeah.
But you're the one that's telling us. So you come to this kind of thing where you're sitting there saying, okay, so the ones that have been sitting in the ground, moving further and further away from humanity, are the ones that quickly come back to life and tell us, well, we need brains because that makes it feel better. It's like, no. It should be the other way around, shouldn't it? That's what I came to. That's agreed. What I came out of it with.
No, agreed. I think, again, they were probably going for striking imagery.
Correct. And like I said, when you look at the moment in itself, it's a great little moment in the film. It's a really enjoyable little piece, and it's a really kind of eerie little, it's fucking sad almost seeing this. Yeah. They give you this sense that, okay, they're dead, but there's still something there. They're still communicating with you. They're longing to be fucking to be free of it, basically. And that fits almost with what Romero's come together with about being this representation of death kind of looming over you. So, yeah, it's exactly what you said before. You get these interesting little moments that don't get played out. So when you think about them yourself, they don't kind of fit for me. They don't work out to what you would hope they would work out to, I guess, is what I'm saying. And that at the end of the day, having just recently gone back to Night of the Living Dead and then, jumping on this to have a little bit of comparison there, this one sort of falls short in that department.
Yeah, fair call. Anything else from your side of the fence?
No. That's there wasn't a lot to it. I really enjoyed it. Just those couple of little things that sort of sat in the back of my mind when we were watching it. Yeah, really enjoyable thing to go back to.
Definitely, mate. And that was Return of the Living Dead. Make sure when you get a viewing of this on, grab yourself a rock hopper or a couple.
Yeah.
Don't go overboard.
Oh, no. Go for it. Because then, like I said, you can empathise with the fucking thing laying on the table. Because that's what I felt like when I woke up after 7 or 8 rock hoppers, and I just thought to myself, make the pain go away, like somehow.
Yeah, great times. I'm sure you remember it fondly. All right. You can find us on iTunes, Spotify and Podomatic. Send us an email, thrillme@iinet.net.au. We're on Facebook at Thrill Me Podcast Australia, Podomatic at thrillme.podomatic.com. We're also on Instagram at Thrill Me Podcast AU. The next episode, week 2 of Octoberfest, we're actually going to cover the new Netflix slasher film, There's Someone Inside Your House. And we will advise when we record the episode as to what beer we're going to be chugging at the same time.
Do I leave this one in your hands, mate? Are you gonna take care of this one, or?
Look, we have to see the film to see what jives best with it.
Yeah.
So we'll have to wait. We'll see where we go from there. But
before we go, can I get your review of a rock hopper? What does it get out of 5?
Not bad. Rock hopper's all right, 3.5.
Yeah.
Snake eyes for rock hopper.
I go in the midst of drinking a rock hopper, I'm sitting at a 4.5, but it gets pulled back down to a 4 when I think of when I've had more than 3 or 4 of them.
When you empty the contents of your stomach onto the floor later in the evening.
Yeah, I look at it and I go, half a star.
But until then, everyone, take it easy and we'll catch up with everyone later. Cheers.
Find the podcast at Podomatic or on iTunes. Don't forget to rate and review. Like us on Facebook at Thrill Me Podcast Australia, or contact us at thrillme, all one word, all lowercase, at iinet.net.au.